Shit, I'm about to get ready. Hit the workout. I'm gonna take some of my supplements. See, y'all niggas ain't taking your supplements. I don't know what you doing. I don't know what you doing. You don't get your goddamn supplement. I don't know what you doing. Oh. You see how I'm saying the damn thing now? It's grown. All right, look. I really is quick. All right. It's your boy Money Buddha. I don't know, time for gang.
Through the Ukrainian checkpoints. Russian armored vehicles, tanks, and BMPs are moving into the outskirts of Chernihiv. Here in the
Tell them they make me sick to my stomach.
Hypermarkets and even parked near one of the high-rise buildings.
You dirty scoundrels.
This breakthrough will be the greatest.
You dirty scoundrels make me sick to my stomach. Money Buddha.
This is what you call a burnt Russian tank, a captured Russian commander, and Russian armored vehicles captured as trophies.
And I'm a fucking mess. I'm always making a fucking mess. Money Buddha. Right now we're getting ready though. We're eating carrots.
We went to look and reconnoiter the situation. We literally got here and saw two tanks that jumped here along the far side of this green building.
The tank, in which was the Russian commander Leonid Chotki, manages to shoot at a high-rise building and then drives out onto the Kiltva Street. On the outskirts of the city, enemy tanks are met by the soldiers of the armed forces, who are not yet morally ready for such battles.
On February 24th, when I gave the order to drive the tanks into the yards, the soldiers looked at me wide-eyed and said, "But these are people's fences. This is our Ukrainian culture. The mentality that does not allow us to somehow drive our equipment into someone else's yard to break something."
Shotkin's tank headed for the Pitsy airfield. After driving 100 meters along Kiltva Street, he was ambushed by fighters of the 1st Tank Brigade. Here they are, Artur Oferenko and Maxim Borisenko. We wanted to talk with them in more detail about the circumstances of the battle, but the guys have been fighting in the hottest areas of the front for several months now. This attempt to speak to them came at a time of relative quiet on the front line, when I was preparing this material about the defense of Chernihiv. So let's listen to what they told our colleague from the 1+1 channel.
There were 7 tanks and 7 infantry fighting vehicles with infantry. The second most powerful army of the world, and advancing just like in World War II. The main thing was that the battalion commander, or whoever was in charge, rides at the head of the convoy. And our task was not to let this enemy pass deep into Chernihiv. We hid behind the fence and waited for this enemy. We used live bait, so to speak.
They first shot his caterpillar tread, while the shot of the Russian tank missed its target. Because the caterpillar tread flew off, the tank began to spin, turn sideways. He was turned sideways, so his second shot hit the engine and fuel tanks.
Mechanic
All right.
Boykov dies in a Russian
It's your boy Money Buddha. Now I'm just fucking making up stuff. Sometimes I just be making up stuff. Excited.
Why did you come?
I don't know.
Or am I?
What do you mean you don't know?
I came to Russia for trainings.
Why the Russia?
For trainings.
Do you know where you are now?
Yes.
Why did you come to Ukraine?
I didn't want to come here.
How did you get here?
I was sent for training.
What tasks did you have?
Just drive through Ukraine. There are no more tasks.
Follow the border? Why did you walk into the city?
I don't know.
Why did you bomb the city?
I don't know.
This young guy came out and he says that the chief suffered contusion. He can't hear anything. They look awful. Torn puffer boots, like homeless bums. Uniforms of any which kind. Torn, dirty, all black. The absurdity is, of course, that they stupidly threw their soldiers to slaughter the commander who was captured. I talked to him. I said, what is the point of the attack? We were assigned. We're going until we die. Well, okay. And the result? Here you have sent your soldiers. Well, they will send more.
Ukrainian projectiles also caught up with the second Russian tank that broke through to Chernihiv.
Their other vehicle, which wanted to break through further. I had the courage under the fences to shoot and hit another of their tanks, hoping not to damage anything on the people's house. But I didn't finish it. I just set it on fire.
Other Russian BMPs and tanks involved in the breakthrough are gathering in the parking lot near this new building. This video was taken by a surveillance camera, and it shows very clearly the moment when it dawns on the Russians that things are not going according to plan.
They lost the chain of command because there was a battalion commander in one tank. And after that, those who remained ran away. The first armored group that jumped out got lost and did not have a clear task. We took the charts of advancement from the commanders, straight from Google, and saw these first units did not have the task to enter the city. Their task was to blockade the city and ensure the advance of the main forces in the direction of Kyiv.
Another Russian BMP, which reached Chernihiv, is destroyed by the fighters in the territorial defense units.
That IFV was burned. It burned with all the crew and all the infantry that was there.
Attempted Russian offensive ends in failure. 7 Russian tanks and 7 BMPs with infantry are stopped by 4 of our tanks and up to 70 infantrymen. Dmitry Vyazhinsky calls this one of the key moments during the defense of Chernihiv.
From the side of Pivtsi, the epicenter, the situation there is difficult. There is an open area. Wide.
The fucking Russians are attacking these people,
And there the enemy could
and the Ukrainians are defending their position.
And they had such an area there that they could advance and reach the city center. If they were to be established in any quarter, then in the future there would be very serious problems. It is very difficult to find an enemy in the city. We understood they are difficult for the enemy if they enter in columns, and in the future for the clearing operation. Because the territorial defense units that were in the city were not really prepared for the urban warfare.
The result of the battle is that the defenders of Chernihiv get trophies. Russian troops abandon them while fleeing. T-72 is taken as a trophy by Artem Lincoln. His unit of 3 tanks was simply sent here during the battle from Kuyik. According to preliminary information, a tank battalion was supposed to enter Chernihiv at that time.
I received an order to advance to the epicenter and immediately attack the tank battalion. Tank battalion, that is, if all vehicles are in working order, 31 tanks. I only have 3 tanks, serviceable, working, all fine. Very unequal forces, 1 to 10. An order is an order. It must be obeyed. I think, oh well, maybe I'll survive. You know, men never ask for help. But when they do, they need it. Because that's all, the last cry of the soul. And when the officer from the north shouts, come on, run for the epicenter, because there's trouble there. I understand that if the colonel shouts trouble, then it is definitely trouble.
The Russian breakthrough was dealt with even without the reserves of Artem Linkov. Arriving at the end of the battle, he finds an abandoned Russian T-72 in a field near the road to Tovskolis. He records this whole process on video.
The first days of this aggression were so chaotic. Everyone was scared. People, military, everyone was scared. I posted this video to show that we too can fight. And we don't need to be afraid, no matter how many tanks arrive there, 100, 200, it doesn't matter. We can also fight well with 3 tanks.
Second video, already with a Russian armored personnel carrier as a trophy, Artem Linkov films for his father, who lives in Russia. His friends do not believe in the Russian invasion.
Hi, Daddy. Here are the real Russian armed forces. In Chernihiv, Dad, you won't believe it. Behind the epicenter, behind the store, in the city. Can you imagine? There is a Russian tank, T-72. I've just moved it there.
The next day, February 27th, the Russians hit the positions of Ukrainian fighters near the epicenter with a missile.
I was wounded in the head. The gunner's leg was broken by the shockwave. Here's the crater. The guy is standing there. And I am standing in this crater. I was already lying on the ground, and I saw the tank crews began to get out. And that's when the artillery began its work. The 152 caliber was working, and the tank of the hero of Ukraine was hit right in front of my eyes. Alexei Senyov, the tank commander. I already lifted my head. I saw the tank was on fire. He shouts, I am burning. Then the ammunition set detonated. He was thrown out of the tank, and that was it.
Hey, Vinny.
Damn, they said the tank exploded.
I don't know.
After the tank exploded, motherfucking,
Can I get one?
it blew the guy's body out the damn thing.
Can I get one with shrimp on it?
You know, some people are allergic to shrimp.
Custom t-shirts, now it's sticker. Try one for only $19 plus free shipping.
Are you telling me a joke? So why don't you tell me one? Then do it, you want.
The epicenter area will be shelled continuously during the blockade of Chernihiv. On February 28th, Russian troops destroyed the hypermarket itself. The line of defense here ran right along the border of the residential area. The field behind the epicenter was already considered a gray zone.
These were already the outer positions. There was no one between this position and the enemy. Further out, it was already mined. There were trenches right along the creek in the birch grove. On March 14th, soldier Nikita Melnyk died there during shelling, a young guy. He was in the trench with his father. Father survived, son died.
Civilians died from the Russian shelling. On March 16th, not far from here, a projectile hit a queue of people waiting for bread. 14 people died. Buildings next to the contact line were also shot from tanks with direct fire.
This is building number 154. Here, we see how purposefully, with precision, they destroyed the stair riser from the tank. For a tank, a kilometer or 2 kilometers, it is very easy to aim and shoot.
A retiree, Alexander Chalish, lives in this house. We decided to tell his story because it is very revealing. The man is 70, and 4 years ago he suffered a stroke. Due to the illness, he could not read and write. The man was rehabilitating himself by walking to Tostolis. He walked here with his dog until, on February 26th, he saw a convoy of Russian tanks. Without hesitation, he picked up his own rifle and, together with the military, patrolled his own neighborhood for a month.
In the morning, it started at 6:30 and went on until 6 or 7 in the evening.
All right, I'm done.
After a stroke, all was behind me. But I felt the power. I felt that I was still needed for our native Ukraine. Here, boys, is the rifle that I walked with, and that protected both me and the city. 60 pieces, all loaded with buckshot and bullets. Well, we wanted to meet them. I shoot a hare on the first try. A Russian I would kill at once.
While Chernihiv was recovering from the first battles, Russian troops bypassed the city from the west, hoping to reach the highway to Kyiv. These plans were hindered by the blown-up bridge in Shestovitsia and also the village of Kuyinka, which is basically the western gates to Chernihiv, where the units of the armed forces were being concentrated.
If you actually looked at what was here in this Kyiinka, it would be very difficult for them to pass here. The military had a lot of weapons. The military had the mindset such that if they were alive, no one would have passed through here. There were both grenade launchers and ambushes.
On February 28th, Kuyinka was fired at with 2 packages of cluster munitions. 3 policemen were killed and 16 more were injured. Positions in the forest outside the village, near the key Cloverleaf Road exchange, were occupied by the troops of the regional and district recruitment centers, both regular personnel and those called up for mobilization, such as Serhiy Vorobyov.
So that you understand, at that time in the whole military recruitment and mobilization office, there were only 1 to 2 officers and 2 shifts to guard the checkpoint, and there was a cat there. That is, the entire military recruitment center was dispersed to all of the positions.
Positions in this forest will be called Sparta.
Why 40 Spartans? Because living conditions were very difficult. It was so cold that you wake up from pain and realize the pain is just an uncontrollable shiver. During the first few nights, I thought I would not survive, but would simply freeze to death.
The main task of the Spartans was not to let the enemy convoys pass on this road. For this we made roadblocks and prepared to meet the Russian armored vehicles.
We were given 4 RPGs for a certain number of launchers. We have no armored vehicles, no helmets, no underbarrel grenade launchers, only assault rifles and RPGs, and also F1 hand grenades. About 2 for each of us. We didn't have HIMARSs, we didn't have javelins, but we had a very strong desire to defend the city. In total,
He trying to defend the city.
but they were very short.
What's money, boot? I'm out.
Generally, when they sensed there was resistance,
Everybody niggas gonna play games with you. Don't let them play
realized there was
games.
a barricade.
Go on and do what you need to do.
They began to
Let them do what they do.
through the town of Mikhailo Kotsupinsk.
Somewhere y'all meet up in the middle, hopefully.
Past these positions, the Russians
not,
began to raise them to the
let's
ground.
stay far.
Look at this forest. There is virtually no survival.
But if you don't get to where you supposed to be
We
going,
had an entire forest stationed with troops. The fact is that our tanks were working. What is it called there? War of maneuver.
that'll be your fault.
That is, they moved to shoot from here to shoot from there. I think from their point of view, if there was a tank and there was a tank, they thought there was everything everywhere. This is where we had the first casualties. Here died Volodysek, the captain. There was an air-raided night. A rocket or bomb hit a tree, and one person was killed by shatters, and 8 others wounded. There were a lot of battles with tanks, artillery, aircraft, and grads.
Look at this video. It shows just one of these strikes on positions in the forest, in which 2 soldiers were killed.
We received reinforcements of fighters, and we didn't even have time to meet them because they were killed within something like 2 to 3 hours. They were given the task of digging a trench here, and there was an air raid. The first explosion was somewhere near the road. What you had to do was lie down on the ground right where you were. And for some reason, they jumped up and ran towards the village. A second explosion, and they were killed.
Here, another fighter died from a sniper's bullet. Serhiy Vorobyov recalls that he had poor eyesight, and the only thing he asked to be delivered to his position were eyeglasses.
I contacted the volunteers. I said, can I have eyeglasses? The soldier has -4 there. They found a pair and read and said they would be delivered. And one night, he was on duty with a thermal imager, and from that side, there was a pipe under the road. The enemy entered, and the sniper killed him. And in the morning, I called to say, the eyeglasses are not needed anymore.
Having a huge advantage in heavy equipment, regardless of losses, the Russian troops continued to move to the south of Chernihiv, to the village of Shestovitsia. There they were regularly hit by the Ukrainian armed forces.
People were constantly calling and reporting that a convoy had passed here in such and such a direction. We passed all this information to the commanders, and they were hit there. As we were told then, only 30% of their convoy reached Shestovitsia.
From here to the village of Shestovitsa is 2 kilometers. Russians opened fire regularly. Our aviation engaged. Their aviation engaged. The intensity of the explosions was off the charts. At times, for just 15 minutes, 100 explosions could be heard.
Control over Shestovitsia and nearby villages was necessary for the Russians to establish a crossing over the Desna River.
On the 28th of February, they unexpectedly constructed a crossing over the Desna in just a few hours. In a spot where theoretically there should not have been a crossing. They planned out the spot, chopped down a part of the forest there, made a crossing, and even managed to bring over the recon and 1 BTG of equipment and personnel. The situation was saved by the fact that all of this was noticed in time. And with a direct hit of the Tochka U missile, the crossing was torn to pieces and swept down the stream.
2 days before the events near Shestovitsia, the armed forces destroyed another Russian crossing in Makoshine near the town of May.
The value of our artillery is in the destruction of the enemy. With just the first salvo of the Urgan MLRS, we hit and burned 10 tanks at once. Based on military science, any commander on that side should have rescinded the decision to continue, but they continued anyway, and there were a lot of tanks destroyed. I think no less than a battalion. The battalion is 30, but there they had more, somewhere up to 60 IFVs, tanks damaged and destroyed. They were drowning these tanks. They sank 3 tanks, and there they remain. It often resembled what would later be called Chornobyivka. At that time, the Chornobyivka battle had not happened yet, but the stupidity of the enemy always surprised us, because they move into this one position, they get hit, their tanks sink, yet they continue to move and move into that place, and we're basically destroying a warehouse.
Later on, the village of Shestovitsia would itself earn the glory of the Chernihiv's Chornobyivka. According to the Operational Command North, about 40% of the Russian troops and equipment entering the village were destroyed. These videos show the consequences of the work of the Ukrainian artillery on March the 7th. Russian equipment will also be destroyed at the local airfield.
Shestovitsa airfield, if you look at the map, is in the form of a ship. And this ship, it just magically attracted the enemy. They always drew their forces there, and we were destroying them there very diligently. Plus, the road that led them from the airfield to the crossing. The enemy, every day, several times, was mercilessly shelled, but even under fire, They moved across the crossing.
The crossing over the Desna River, which Alexander spoke about, was built by the Russians near the village of Shestovitsia in early March. This crossing did not sink under artillery fire.
Between the layers of this crossing, there is foam. We saw that when there were direct hits at the crossing, there were holes, but the crossings did not sink and stood.
This crossing did help the Russians bypass Chernihiv from the south. On March 3rd, they occupied the villages of Zolotinka, Ladinka, and Yahidne. On this day, Major General Viktor Nikoluk arrived at the checkpoint near Yahidne. He decided to personally go out and scout the enemy positions.
The soldiers were not morally ready to go beyond the checkpoint. They didn't refuse, they just weren't ready. If we took them with us, we would simply suffer losses. There, they would have remained. 4 of us went to recon the objective. There was also a vehicle with the personnel of the 58th Brigade. They got through the ambush, and we were in the Tucson. And we really shut down several firing points. Then, unfortunately, Andrei Katkov was killed, the driver, but he also took part in the battle. One of our special forces troops was also wounded. They began to fire at us with mortars, AGS, then the APC-82 came out and simply unloaded on us with a 30 mic. We had to retreat.
That 30 mic. Hit his ass with that 30 mic.
RPG-22 and an RPG-26.
Dirty 30.
I unloaded everything I had, but there were a lot of them. We left in the dark. Our infantry met us. We had to learn the word Palyanitsia, because we wouldn't have gotten out without the Palyanitsia. In the morning, I made a decision. We went and retrieved the body of Andrei Katkov. There was another battle. We did damage. Our scouts burned down the Tiger. Then we found out that there were about 6 people there who we destroyed. We also destroyed another firing position with a grenade launcher. We took the body and got out on the recon IFV.
Russians knocked out Ukrainian infantry from a checkpoint named Yahidne,
Alright.
claiming the checkpoint would take the fight. Viktor Nikoluk
Keys right there, hat there.
Russian checkpoint.
I'm about to go get ready to hit this.
It's done. Glory to Ukraine.
The commander took over the checkpoint.
In the army, all are equal, both generals and soldiers. And before sending
Who's
the
ready?
to death, I must go back
Who's ready to win?
held out for about 4 hours. Artillery.
You know me. You know how I go. They broke niggas.
Then the Oregons, then the Grads, then the
We don't feel those kind of feelings. Boss feelings only. Nigga thieving. You better not be my shit. Okay. I look good, but I ain't gonna lie. She wanted to talk to a nigga. Now she wanted to be best friends.
On March 5th, the Russians advanced even closer to the southern outskirts of Chernihiv. They occupied the village of Ivanivka, located 13 kilometers from the city.
They cover fired the village of Ivanivka with artillery, while coming in from the other side. They entered from several sides. The 58th Brigade was fighting. Unfortunately, all our IFVs were destroyed. The enemy's equipment was destroyed, but about 2 companies got in, whereas what we had there were 5 IFVs. And about
So what are we doing? What are we doing?
To complete the encirclement of Chernihiv, the Russian troops had to take the last step. This last step would have to be the village of Kolychivka, basically the southern gates of Chernihiv. Control over the village would have allowed Russian troops to cut off any connection between Chernihiv.
Told you I touched my forehead, boy, and I'm tight. I got a black dot on my shit. I'm an Indian or some shit.
Destroyed. On the left, the road to Kolychivka, after the occupation of Ivanivka and Yahidne, came through its village.
It caught fire.
Alright, I'm back.
People began to
I don't know what that did on the screen, but we're back. Okay.
the recon guys of the
Now it's time to get ready to hit this motherfucker. Time for tank.
back in APC.
We in the gym for tank.
We almost shot it. Thank God we didn't. Our scouts were there. We took this APC, and now it serves our 134th Guard Battalion. Separatists, IFV, separatist tanks, all separatist armor is on fire. Thank God our guys have worked realized the move.
They didn't even take their wounded. When they were retreating, their cries could be heard in the landings. They mostly tried to take away their equipment. When they finally came back, they were retrieving parts. Because many were blown up. Our ARTA was doing its job there at that time.
Afghanis will be awarded the Order for Courage of the Third Degree by the President of Ukraine for his actions in Kolychivka. Viktor Nikoluk will once again confirm his reputation as a general who personally leads his troops into attack.
Owing to him, Kolychivka stood firm. Extreme attack. When tanks IFVs were destroyed, and he led personnel that moved forward and recaptured the position in Kolychivka. This is the usual work of a commander. That is, as defined in the statute. The commander must be where it matters most. Accordingly, such a decision was made.
Oh no, y'all.
Not only in Kolychivka, but all around our commanders are like that. Everyone wanted to fight, to destroy the enemy.
After the defeat in Kolychivka, the Russian army did not stop trying to surround Chernihiv and attacked Lukashivka, a village near the route to Kulikivka. It's important for controlling both the route itself and all the villages near Desna. On March 9th, the invaders, who had no less than 3 dozen tanks alone, entered Lukashivka from 3 sides. The forces were too unequal. The Russians were being held up by the Ukrainians. They had 2 tanks and 4 lightly armored BRDMs. Under such conditions, the soldiers of the armed forces held their defense to the last, destroyed enemy armor as they withdrew, and figured out how to escape from Russian captivity.
To put it simply, they made a cauldron for us. We can neither get in nor out.
On March 9th, a unit of the 58th Brigade, led by Volodymyr Haidaichuk, held defensive positions at a farm in Lukashivka. For 3 days prior, it had been under constant fire from Russian troops.
On the 6th, Uragan and Grad missiles were incoming. Over here, to the village,
What's wrong with you?
near the cowshed, near the water tower. And where we had our tanks standing the first time, the missile just fell right under the wall. It blew off half the head of the guy. He was lying on top of the tank, resting. Here, we had a KAMAZ truck. First, the tanks fired at it. Then IFV began to work it over, and it was set on fire. There lies a projectile that flew in that time.
At 7 in the morning on March 9th, the Russians launched an assault. Their armored vehicles began entering the village.
In total, they had 34 to 38 tanks in the village. And for each tank, there were 2 IFVs. There was a lot. We didn't expect there would be so much. When they brought us here, they told us to stop the breakthrough, and there would be a maximum of 2 tanks here.
Volodymyr held the defense line at this unit. Seeing the first Russian tank, he managed to take a grenade launcher and shoot.
I crouched, raised the gun, stood up, fired a shot, sat back down, turned around, took a step, and saw a man from the 21st Battalion falling. I told him, lie down, and then I got a sharp slap on the back.
A tank shell flew over the embankment. Volodymyr was wounded in the heel, arm, and lung.
I immediately screamed because I could neither breathe nor move. I could not feel my legs at that moment. I just ripped off the safety and lay there, clutching a grenade. They understood that if they started shooting at me and approached me by unclenching my hand, I would take several enemy people with me. Or they would simply kill me.
The grenade was taken from Volodymyr by his comrades, and the wounded comrade was carried to the chicken coop. A Russian tank shot at it 3 times with direct fire. Volodymyr miraculously survived again.
We were under the debris. Other tank men came and dug us out. They dragged me into the next room. The IFB in the tank began to shoot. Again, we were buried. They dug up again. Then they dug me up a 3rd time. Dragged me into the next room, then dragged me back to the trench. It was already dark by then. I no longer felt pain. Stuff would fall on me. I would lose consciousness again and feel nothing.
Volodymyr was given an injection, thanks to which he will be able to walk. The fighters are making their way to the neighboring village through the fields.
Halfway to the village of Budi, I realized I couldn't walk. I began to lean on the tank man. I held on to his bulletproof vest, and we walked side by side. We reached a bridge. I sat under a tree and immediately switched off. I could no longer stand up at all. And I couldn't breathe either. They took me in their arms, crossed their hands, and carried me to Buddy, about 1.5 kilometers.
Another group of fighters, about 60 soldiers, withdrew from the farm area and took a different road to the village of Baklanova Murivika.
They're shooting from there, explosion here, explosion there.
Moving out from the farm, the fighters noticed Russian equipment.
The road is there. This is how it goes. There was a convoy of 70 vehicles.
Alexander and his comrades shoot up to 5 trucks with ammunition. These pictures here they took right in the middle of the combat.
Alright, we almost ready.
We began to hit the top of the small arms, and the RPG was lying there. We brought a bag with shots. Hold on. Oh, it. Go ahead and get. Well, I stuck my head out of this ditch. Shouted fire and fired. Well, they showed me where to aim. They have a circle sign on the turret, so I fired at the circle. I understand under the turret, there should be 2 of them, and also a mechanic driver in the front. So 6,000 degrees of cumulative jet must have been fun. Well, the mech driver was still trying to get out, so we cut him down a bit there.
The Russians calculated the positions from which the Ukrainians were firing.
Our company officer was killed from this machine gun. He brought another bag of ammo. He was hit right under the helmet between the eyes.
Alexander and his comrades left Lukashivka through the fields.
And in the field, we were already at the distance where artillery could be used. So the artillery worked them over. We lost Lukashivka because soldiers of the 21st Battalion and 58th Brigade were not ready to fight against tanks. Into the village entered the Russian tanks, the IFVs. Of course, they threw up smokes, and a special unit entered in. So the 21st Battalion and 58th Brigade suffered losses. Part of them from the 58th were surrounded and captured.
Brothers Roman and Leonid Putusin died near one of these houses. They were Russian citizens who, in 2014, along with their father, immigrated to Ukraine and joined its defense.
They overtook an enemy armored personnel carrier, or IFB, I don't remember, and blew it up. Then, they retreated to the town and directed the artillery fire. The brothers fought to their last. Their armor was a mess of rags and plates. Broken plates. In each of their helmets, there were several bullet holes. When we found them, the boys were lying one with the other, as if they had hugged in their last seconds.
Viking has its own incredible story, which he told to journalist Yuri Butusov in Lukashivka. Together with other fighters, he was captured by the Russians, where they immediately began to torture him.
We were tortured by the enemy's battalion commander himself.
He came out immediately and met us with a bat. He chose me because he thought I was from the Special Operation Forces. Looked closely at my tattoos. He took out a bat, hit me 5 times on the back, and was trying to learn something from me. For that, he received negative comments addressed to him. We were loaded onto the MTLB armored vehicle. They were bringing us as a gift to the brigade commander. On the MTLB, we went along the road to Ivanivka. They had a brigade headquarters there.
On the way, the Russians got blown up on their own mines. Ukrainians took revenge on the enemy and fled to their side barefoot. Russians took away their shoes.
I fell off. But the guys caught me right away. There were 9 of us. The boys jumped. I was already hanging on the rope. My beard saved me, softening the suffocation. The guys found a piece of metal, cut off my rope, cut off everything I was wearing. The crew of this MTLB jumped out, opened the hatch. Brothers, help! We helped them and closed the hatch. We went into the field. We already heard that the chase for us began. 9 people, all wounded, waited for darkness to come out in 12 hours.
Dmytro Brzezinski calls the battle in Lukashivka one of the most heroic pages of Chernihiv defense.
In Lukashivka, the military personnel who were there understood tanks were coming, armored vehicles were coming. They stayed, and later they showed me photos of how they were fired on again and again. But they carried out their task, although what kind of preparation was there? Literally just a week. It was very impressive that the personnel did not leave their positions, realizing this could be the road to a certain end. Heroism, that is clear. Because yesterday's farmers, teachers, cooks, and everyone, when people found out just how much enemy armor we shredded here, yes, we also suffered losses. But, and this was the beginning of the war, the Russians were still trained military personnel, not the prison inmates they would use later.
For the battle in Lukashivka, Alexander Zelensky was awarded the Order for Courage of the 3rd degree by the President of Ukraine.
Well, you see, and people say the president's family members do not fight in the military. Just kidding. Not a relative, just the same last name.
The occupation of Lukashivka lasted 22 days. After the liberation, the bodies of killed Ukrainian soldiers and local residents were found in the village. From Lukashivka, the Russian military fired at the evacuation convoys that were breaking through from the blockaded Chernihiv. The fighters of the Ukrainian armed forces would not let the Russians move any further than Lukashivka.
Further up is the village of Baklanova Moraviivka. We deployed the anti-tank guided missiles, so any movement of the military equipment which was carried out here, destroying 1 or 2 units of equipment, and the enemy groups that tried to leave the village, we simply destroyed them.
In the next part, we will tell you about Russians' attempts to destroy Chernihiv, about the shelling of the city from aeroplanes and heavy artillery, and how our soldiers fought back, what military targets at the Haharin Stadium, and at the Ukraine Hotel, the battle of the skiing base, and the battles for the mountain in Novoselivka. What was the price of the heroic defense of a strategic height, on which the Russian planes dropped more than 50 aerial bombs? Russian DRGs in the city, how many there were, and how they operated. Attempts of the invaders to surround Chernihiv, why they failed, and the Russians were forced to flee. About all this in part 3.
Our PBM puts together our prescription drug benefits, helps us in our strategy, and gives us the data we need to make informed, cost-effective decisions. Our PBM is very transparent and honest. The PBM marketplace is very competitive, and we have a relationship. Our PBM is part of our family. It's more than a partner.
Here is the the city of Chernihiv. This beaten with debris stela became the symbol of the Ukrainian military's heroism in the fight for the city. Back in April, there were already graves on this mountain. These are the men who held the heights till the last. Why did the Russians need it so much that they razed this mountain to the ground? We believe it's important to talk about it, as well as other key battles of Chernihiv, which changed the plans of the Russians to take Kyiv in 3 days and force them to flee under the guise of a goodwill gesture. Our series focuses exclusively on the servicemen, providing a perspective on the war of professional soldiers and volunteers. Learn the experience of both recruits and generals. This documentary provides the most detailed account of the defense of Chernihiv at the moment. It is based on the memories of the direct participants of those events. Both Chernihiv residents who stayed in the city until the Russians fled, and those who had to leave because of the war, felt the presence of these people and believed in them. Now we can show them to you. September 2021. Russia and Belarus are holding joint military drills, West 2021. According to the Russian military authorities, this involved 200,000 soldiers, 80 planes and helicopters, almost 300 tanks, and 250 artillery systems. Troops practiced shooting, assaulting, and landing. Dictators Vladimir Putin and Alexander Lukashenko watched the drills. Upon their completion, Russian propagandists report.
West 2021 joint maneuvers of the armed forces of Russia and Belarus. Their main task is to ensure the security of the Union state. As Vladimir Putin stressed, they didn't attack anyone and had only a defense character.
In 2021, besides practicing a full-scale invasion, they also left a lot of equipment in the territory of Belarus, later used to attack Ukraine. The drills were completed in early October 2021. Starting October and up to December, they were maneuvering BTGs, moving echelons and equipment over 100 to 300 kilometers to mislead us.
Russia continued pulling its equipment to the borders of Ukraine up until the early winter of 2021.
The center force grouping, with its headquarters in Unechev-Bryansk region, was positioned next to the Chernihiv and Sumy regions. Their plans were approved sometime in early January 2022. All the orders, applications, and so on.
In early February 2022, the number of Russian grouping was estimated at 130,000 soldiers. 2 weeks before the invasion, Russia and Belarus held another training called Allied Resolve on the territory of the latter.
As a military man, I always expected the enemy's attack. But it was the absurdity of the attack itself. I mean, the use of missiles, aviation, and artillery in the 21st century. That raised doubts. Although when our drills had already begun, I was more inclined to believe that the invasion would happen after all.
Here is archival footage of the Ukrainian drills in Zanita in the Chernihiv region, where the first separate Severa tank brigade.
We prepared for this, but we did not know when and what exactly would happen. We were coordinating, lived in the field, and practiced defense and offense with the personnel.
I anticipated that. You see, no one will move an entire tank brigade 7,000 to 8,000 kilometers for nothing.
During the drills, we practiced the unit maneuvering over a long distance of more than 300 kilometers.
We were already in the dispersal area. We were in that area for 3 weeks. With tanks, we were charging them there, equipping belts and dynamic protection and refueling. We trained and conducted shooting and exercises. We were preparing for war.
A few days before the invasion, Major General Viktor Nikoluk went to check the readiness of troops on the border.
I checked all the checkpoints throughout Chernihiv and Sumy regions, where we expected possible invasion.
Colonel Dmytro Brzezinski remained in charge in Chernihiv. Previously, he was the head of the 93rd Holodniki Yar Brigade. It was under his command that Bayraktar was used in Donbass in October 2021 for the first time. On February 22nd, 2 days prior to the invasion, he still did not believe a full-scale invasion would happen.
Deep down, I understood that escalation in the JFO area in Donbass was possible. However, I'd been returning home with weapons for 2 days straight. I thought there might be some sabotage and some people waiting to use the situation to undermine the leadership. So I would come home with a weapon and leave my car somewhere away. I even started doing 4 laps around the house, then parking my car near the other block and returning home on foot.
On the evening of February 23rd, Dmytro Brzezinski, earlier appointed as the head of the Chernihiv Defense Staff, received 2 messages.
At 10:30 p.m., I received a text message from the military counterintelligence service that stated a large-scale invasion was to begin tomorrow. And literally an hour later, I received another text message saying it was a fake. And the second message could be interpreted in different ways.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian border guards in Dnipropetrovsk, a village bordering Belarus, were discussing the latest statements made by US President Biden regarding the Russian invasion.
It's so weird. We were driving in the car when I read the guys an article about Biden, saying there would be an attack on Ukraine on February 24th at 4 a.m. And we just said, yeah, right, it'll be the 3rd time, and laughed it off. And then, it happened.
Dnipropetrovsk would be the first to fall under the Russian attack in the Chernihiv region. At 4:20 a.m., the 10th camp of border guards would be shelled by a drone launched from Belarus.
I was wounded in the arm. I tried to raise my arm, but there was blood on it. There were explosions, and other guys were falling from their beds. Meanwhile, I couldn't gather myself together and get up.
Viktor Derevienko and 6 other wounded border guards were taken away by ambulance. At this time, his surviving comrades blew up the bridge across the Dnipro to prevent the Russians from breaking through. The first Russian strikes in the Chernihiv region hit the border outposts. The airfield of the State Emergency Service in Nizhyn, and the training building of the 1st Tank Brigade in Honcherivsk. The blasts could be heard from many kilometers away.
At about 6:20 a.m., the first missile hit the training building in Honcharivska. Honestly, I thought it was a nuclear explosion.
I deployed units of the 1st Tank Brigade and the 58th Separate Motorized Infantry Brigade, allowing the people to survive the first strike on the Tank Brigade, saving the equipment and ammunition. It was already 6 a.m. and we were flying to the frontline command post. It was then that I decided to call my wife. To call her while the phone lines were up.
Do you mention saying your goodbyes to your wife?
I did. After all, you can never know what will happen in an hour.
Units of the center grouping were sent to the Chernihiv and Sumy region. A total of about 30,000 soldiers and 10,000 equipment units.
About 5,000 equipment units were sent to the Chernihiv direction, and about 13,000 to 15,000 people. Those were the forces that came to the area of Chernihiv and in the northwestern part of the city and fought the Chernihiv Defense Group. They came through between the checkpoints Dobryanka and Senkivka from the territory of Belarus. They entered through Horodnia and then moved towards Rybki, then to Mikhailo Akstyubinsk, Shestovista, and further to Chernihiv.
By the afternoon of February the 24th, Russians were passing Semenivka, Horodnia, Novorossiysk. They are moving with unprecedented columns of equipment.
At first, we would get excited to see even 100 units of equipment, but then we wouldn't even bother to count if there were less than 500. The biggest column we saw was 34 kilometers long.
For clarity on the map, a 34-kilometer long column would be the distance from Chernihiv to Rybki.
I have never seen so many military vehicles before, let alone seen them moving simultaneously from so many directions. It was the first time in my entire life.
So which Russian units planned to invade Chernihiv? These were military units of the 41st Combined Arms Army, the 35th Separate Guards Motorized Rifle Brigades from the Altai Territory, the 74th Separate Guards Motorized Rifle Brigade from the Kemerovo region, and the 55th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade from Tuva, the one that would later commit war crimes during the occupation of the village of Yahimli, locking its residents in the school basement for almost a month.
The 90th Tank Division was also partially involved. Some of its forces were given to the 41st Army to strengthen and boost the offensive on Chernihiv.
The forces were uneven. At the beginning of the invasion, only 2 brigades of Ukraine's armed forces defended the Chernihiv direction. The 1st Tank Brigade and the 58th Motorized Infantry Brigade. A National Guard regiment from Shostka was sent to fight for the Chernihiv direction. The National Guard units were also among the main ones in Chernihiv. During active fighting, border guards came to the city from everywhere. If we count all the volunteers and territorial defense forces, which will be discussed later, the enemy still had an advantage both in the number of fighters and especially in the amount of equipment.
They knew they were only the 1st Tank and 58th Infantry Brigade. 2 brigades against 3 brigades, and half of the Tank Division. It was clear they had an advantage.
In total, there were 21 tanks in Chernihiv in March. They scattered in each main direction leading to the center. The ratio was 1 to 10, 1 to 20. Perhaps it was similar to Alosha Popovich fighting the 8-armed, 8-headed serpent. That's what it felt like. One of its heads appeared in Rybki, and it was cut off. Another head in Kiselivka, cut off as well. And one more in Pivtsi. All its heads were appearing here and there all over the Chernihiv region.
If we were to assess the Chernihiv direction, the enemy had enough forces and means to take the city.
Real Vienna coffee, made for you.
Your future is at your fingertips. Take advantage of the flexibility and diversity of futures trading with NinjaTrader, the #1 rated futures broker. Start trading futures today.
But what was the importance of Chernihiv for the Russians? Control over the city was necessary for the offensive in Kiev. Chernihiv, if captured, was to become a logistics hub for Russian troops halfway to the capital.
Having held Chernihiv, we managed to avoid the Russians getting one of the main directions to attack the Kiev from the north and east. There is such a notion as a supply link. The Brovary group, which came from the Konotop, had a supply link of up to 300 kilometers. And when there are about 15 to 20,000 troops and 5 to 6,000 vehicles, you require a lot of equipment to ensure the supply of food, ammunition, and everything you need. The link that went to Chernihiv was much shorter, half as long. By going along the M01 highway, they would solve this problem more efficiently.
During the first day of the invasion, the Russians wanted to advance as far as possible.
They were advancing very quickly. There were even instances where they were 1.5 or 2 kilometers away from a bridge. So we had to hastily blow it up to make them go in the direction we wanted. We forced them to get off the main road, so made them go into the fields. They got completely bogged down in the swamps, where we could get them easily.
According to the initial plan, The armed forces had to keep the defense on the line Rybki Horodnia. Due to the rapid advance of the Russians, the plan had to be adjusted on the spot.
Thank God we went a bit off the plan. As sad as it is to admit, we were not ready to fight such a horde in an open field, because we would have been swept away, and we would have lost both human and technical resources. They would have entered Chernihiv with no trouble. Therefore, we had to disperse them and fight where we needed. In Chernihiv, yes, they shelled the city, but we had to pull them away. If the enemy is strong, we should partially give up our territory to inflict damage on small groups, here and there exsanguinating its main units.
On February the 24th, units of the 1st Separate Tank Brigade were sent to meet the Russians near Chernihiv. Rybkinskaya Highway near Chernihiv. Here, on the evening of February 24th, Russian troops, who had marched dozens of kilometers before that, were ambushed.
At first, we had a mission to support the artillery to stop the enemy on its approach. In other words, our ground systems were firing, and we had to cover their flanks. And just as we were taking a smoke break and loading ammunition, we heard our rocket system start to work, launching a full package of shells. We asked Hunk what was going on. He answered, "This is war."
Before that, a week earlier, we conducted a demonstration and went to these frontiers. There's a swampy area behind Rybki. So a mechanized company was headed there. They knew the terrain well. Thanks to this, the tank brigade held this invasion back.
One after another, the 1st Tank Brigade destroyed 2 vanguard columns of Russians.
Their reinforced company tactical group was driving with tanks at full speed. So we pulled the tanks away and ambushed them. I still had time to call the battalion commander. The communications were working. I told him to let them approach and order the artillery to work. And we started with the battery. And so their first column was almost completely destroyed at the front. They thought it was their artillery covering them, I guess. Their second column followed the same path. We took a captive and asked that fool, "Why did you even go there?" And he said, "We were told those were destroyed Ukrainian tanks." They even lied to their men so they wouldn't be afraid. Thus, in a couple of hours, the second column was destroyed in almost the same place.
During the battle, the reserve, under the leadership of Lieutenant Colonel Artem Linkov, went to help the main forces.
An officer from the north gave an order, saying there was a column coming from the direction of Homo. There was a fight, but something was wrong with our men. There was a slack in the defense. 2 columns met, and there was a counter battle, but it wasn't clear who was winning.
At first, Artem Linkov had only 3 tanks under his command.
We departed with 3 vehicles. My vehicle broke down, and another one got overheated and stopped working. So, I reached the checkpoint near the turn to Halyavan with only 1 tank. I told the men there to go along, since we had to help the guys in the battle. At least we could get those who were still alive out of there. They said the infantry was coming with 2 IFVs, so I could take them. I got into my tank, waited for those 2 IFVs, and then we headed off. By the time I arrived, there were destroyed columns with broken IFVs. I looked around and saw an IFV right in front of me. I said to the gunner, "See the IFV? Fire." And he was like, "For real? I gotta shoot the IFV?" "Yes, for real. It's not training." So, he shot from our tank, and the IFV's turret blasted into the air. A dead Russian soldier was lying near a truck. We started to inspect the equipment. There was one working Tiger, so the guys from the infantry took it as a trophy. There was also an IFV. We knew how to use it. I drove it to the road and told the tank driver to go ahead, since he had our flag. Meanwhile, I had nothing but these Russian markings. The last thing I wanted was to get killed by my people. While taking the equipment, I examined the chevrons and figured we were up against a Marine reconnaissance.
On the first day of the invasion, a reconnaissance platoon of Russia's 74th Motorized Rifle Brigade surrendered.
What did the commanders tell you when they sent you here? Who are you going to fight with?
With Ukraine.
What the Why are you going to fight with us?
I don't know.
On February 24th, Russian troops stopped on the Veliki Ozniki Sedniv line, about 25 kilometers from Chernihiv.
The blockade of Chernihiv is complete, and units of the armed forces of Ukraine offer no resistance.
While Konashenkov reported on the blockade of Chernihiv and said the Ukrainian army was not resisting, on February 25th, the armed forces smashed another convoy of Russian equipment, this time on the outskirts of Horodnya.
The column lined up in 3 rows of armored vehicles. This was reported by the local resistance movement. The missile division hit it. And the whole convoy burned down. Armored vehicles, IFVs, APCs, tanks, artillery. Up to 20 pieces of equipment were destroyed.
In the Rybki direction, the Russian army was making a second attempt to break through to Chernihiv. The village of Halyavin is about 13 kilometers from the center of Chernihiv, and at this crossroads, on the morning of February 25th, the armed forces faced the occupation troops.
We got the order to start a battle with them, to force them to deploy in combat formation. And at that time, our artillery had to work.
On the morning of the 25th, civilians called us and said that a convoy was moving in the Rybki direction.
Up to 50 units of Russian equipment were moving towards Chernihiv.
We had 2 tanks on the defensive. One was over here, the other on the right side, a little closer. We were on duty at the checkpoint at the time.
As infantrymen, we were ordered to reinforce our tank group. In total, we had 3 IFVs. 1 remained to cover the tanks, and 2 went to the psychiatric hospital, so they could not outflank us.
Here was the tank, and I took a position on the elevation right there. We lay in hiding. We had some RPG-26 so-called flies, so we lay down and handed out those weapons to the others. Then we set a soldier, the one with iron balls, so to speak, to the very checkpoint to watch for the convoy.
Andrihi was the soldier at the checkpoint.
I'm nostalgic for the checkpoint.
Nostalgic?
Just kidding. The morning of February 25th was nice and sunny. I hated it when I figured that the village of Valyukovis, where I come from, was still under occupation. I was worried sick about my family. I stayed to watch the checkpoint and noticed the enemy's convoy. Then I threw a couple of bursts and began moving to the left where my men were.
After that, we informed our senior command, and they raised the drone in the air. And then we heard our artillery working. Our tanks were quicker to react and started shooting and maneuvering first. I literally fell in love with the tanks and artillery during this period, and the combat started. We still had our IFV standing there. My gunner and driver mechanic was hiding in a covered position. He did not see the enemy himself, but we told him where to shoot. We made up to 5 shots, after which the tanks began to retreat. Since there was such a furious barrage of fire, we could not raise our heads while lying there.
The battle was taking place near this bus stop. 6 months later, there are still shell holes along the road. Do you see this hole in the road sign? It is a result of a tank shot. The Russians were aiming at the armored vehicles of the 1st Tank Brigade.
Tanks were shooting. They mostly fired at our IFVs. When I got into it later, I saw that the turret did not turn at all. There was a hole in it from a shell.
Everything went just as we had planned. We stopped them. The battle started. They deployed in combat formation, and our artillery began to fire. While we had to go back to Chernihiv.
We started to move back together, thinking that the mechanic would leave that IFV behind since there was no chance to start it. But he had balls. So he got into it, and soon I could hear the IFV moving. We thought it was hopeless, but he managed to drive away from there. We were heading to the Zaz district, but got ambushed. We got into this damaged IFV, and he started moving, and then got shot twice by the RPG, hitting the vehicle while we were in it. After the second shot...
My bad, I had an emergency meeting.
I was wounded in my arm and got shrapnel in my leg.
In this battle, Alexander's commander, Sergei Hunk Telyashkov, was killed. He was 24 years old and was to get married in 2 weeks. In August, his bride would give birth to their son and name him Sergei after his late father. While the battle in Halyavin continues, Russian troops are preparing to meet them already at the entrance to Chernihiv from the side of the Zaz micro-district.
The majority was from the territorial defense. They all came here, some by civilian cars, some on foot. Every hour, 10 to 15 more people were coming here. Around 12 o'clock, there is a command in battle. At the turn to Polobotki, there was a Russian tank. I saw it shooting, and the shell flew over our heads. Then there was an explosion, and I saw the tank was smoking, but it managed to escape behind the corner. After a while, about an hour and a half, our IFV came back with no turret. There were wounded and killed people. Paramedics were working.
Following the battle near Halyavin, the OC North reports on the destruction of 10 to 15 units of enemy equipment.
We hit 5 enemy tanks at once. Unfortunately, several of our vehicles were also shot. The enemy tried to surround one of the companies, but they managed to get out. The brigade commander Koda made the right decision. He took them a few kilometers away, conducted a counterattack, and so our people stayed alive. We lost 2 or 3 vehicles back then, but so did the enemy. We destroyed them in the first battle, the 1st Tank Brigade. We are military men, and we've been serving for many years, but it was our very first real battle. It was very scary, but the adrenaline was doing its work. After all, it feels great to know you've kicked the orcs' butts. What are they like in the battle? They're just like...
Всех приветствую, друзья! Попал в руки очень интересный элемент снаряжения. Это можно назвать его боевой килл. Это от НПО халитов, самурай, да, называется. Все интересное придумали до нас, посмотрев на доспехи древних самураев, да и вообще там на пластинчатые доспехи. Сейчас все бронежилеты, как бы и защита приходит к этому. Защита рук, расширенная защита плеч. И вот получился комплекс защиты, по сути, ниже пояса. Что данный единый элемент заменяет в себе? Это широкий царский напашник это автономная защита бедер, и это поджопник. И все вот это сделано единой конструкцией, которая дополняет каждый элемент. Еще боевой пояс. То есть тут мы получаем вот одним элементом снаряжения баллистическую защиту больше, чем весь бронежилет, там существенно, и заменяя баллистику пояса, баллистику напашника, баллистика бедер, баллистика поджопника. И все это в одном снаряжении. И сделано так, что мертвых зон неприкрытых практически нет, и он мультиразмерный. Он мультиразмерный, и получается на очень большой диапазон размеру бойцов он делает. И получается доступ, можно спокойно там залезть в карман, навязать жгут, то есть не фиксируется. Но в тот же момент, то есть, да, тут работа, смотрите как легла. Прикрытие бедренной артерии сверху, напашник, закрывается эта часть. То есть очень интересно, как элементы взаимодействуют друг с другом. Состоит он из двух частей. То есть вот фронтальная часть, которая представляет из себя напашник, бедра и промежуточные листья, и на них еще нанесено моли в нескольких вариантах. Это такой минималистичный моли минус, но нашивают, мне говорили то, что и обычные моли как раз, чтобы вешать снаряжение. И такая вот юбка. Данный элемент снаряжения очень эргономично вписывается при работе с другими элементами. Регулировка размера осуществляется очень легко. Основу поставили. Все. Вопрос, конечно, стоит, если мы использовали СТКС с упором, как они будут взаимодействовать друг между другом, но все равно сохраняется возможность использования боевого пояса, варбелта, вашего же варбелта поверх этого снаряжения. Чтобы минимизировать, можно из варбелта достать баллистику, потому что тут у нас двойное такое перекрытие идет. И сверху прям варбелт вполне себе неплохо так и встает. То есть, да, то есть варбелтом он работает, это нормально. Если мы говорим вообще про саперов, вот этот элемент снаряжения реально это, вот прям то, что нужно первое после бронежилета.
Man, I got a bit, man. Fucking with them crackers. Hey, I'm just being nice. You be nice to. Sometimes I like being mean. Sometimes I like being. Sometimes. He got you. He fighting little niggas. He over there fighting little niggas. Oh, this nigga everybody wanna throw some punches. So I was trying to, I don't know why he turned it to that.
Don't eat rice until you watch this. Rice is unfortunately pure glucose in starch form. It is one of the factors.
Rogue has finally done it. After watching just about everyone tease or launch a functional train add-on for their racks, they've released their versions. We've reviewed the FM single stack, and it's great, but this is the FM twin functional trainer, and it's incredible. With dual 300-pound weight stacks, the FM twin packs a ton of versatility into a very small
You say my
space.
what?
You can use your rack as a functional trainer, get creative with low rows.
Okay, hold on.
You can no longer fit through
I'm
doors,
coming.
all without sacrificing the functionality of your rack. The FM Twin may just have the best build quality and the smoothest pull of any cable system I've seen, but don't mistake my enthusiasm for me saying it's perfect. Rogue and I haven't always gotten along, and I've got some criticisms, and I don't think it's the perfect solution for everyone. There's a lot of options out there. Rogue has quite a few ways you can configure this, and let's not forget the competition. Rep has upped their game with the Aries 2.0, and we've seen and used dozens of other systems. So as I break this thing down, we'll make some comparisons, and I'll tell you whether I think the Twin is worth the money. Over the years, Rogue has gained a reputation for producing very high-quality American-made equipment with oftentimes high prices to go with it. With the FM single stack and twin functional trainers, the quality is there. They're probably the nicest thing that I've seen from Rogue, but the prices are oddly close to Rep's offerings. An Aries 2.0 add-on costs $2,800 shipped, and the FM twin add-on, depending on how you build it, could be a little more or a little less, but it costs around $2,800 shipped. Weird coincidence, right? Not really. It's intentional. The odd part is Rogue is made in America and Rep's imported. And as we'll see, there's a substantial quality difference between the two. So how can Rogue match Rep's pricing? Well, they kind of have to. These two are battling it out in hopes you invest in their ecosystem, and that competition benefits us as consumers as it results in better products and cheaper prices. Of course, there are differences between the Aries and Twin Stack outside of price, and we'll talk about them as we go. But if you want a big side-by-side in-depth comparison video, then let us know. There are quite a few ways to build out a twin stack. You've got 90 and 100-inch height options, a few depths to choose from. You can remove the shrouds and save $300, and can even opt for a compact half-rack setup. Not every configuration has been released yet, though, as Rogue is trying to keep up with demand. This one is on my monster rack, Rogue's 3-inch by 3-inch rack with 1-inch holes and 2-inch hole spacing. But I poked and prodded and got Rogue to confirm it will be releasing a version for the Monster Light as well. That's their 3x3 rack with 5/8-inch holes. Of course, when building out a rack, you've got even more options to choose from. Different pull-up bars, J-cups, safeties, and there's 12 different finishes you can pick from. Yet somehow Winnie convinced me this green rack would look great in YouTube thumbnails, but she also picked green for our prime shorty bench, which makes me think maybe she's just trying to fill the gym with her favorite color. But if your wife's not smarter than you, like mine is, unfortunately not much of an accomplishment for her, how do you know which options to choose? Well, as we go through how well the lap pull down, functional trainer, and low row system work, I'll let you know where I've found issues. One of your big decisions is going to be the shrouds, because you'll have to decide if they're worth the money. And I get it. I bought and paid in full for this and my single stack setup. So if you enjoy our content, please subscribe, give me a like for how good I am at spending money on content that loses money, and use our affiliate links if you purchase something from any of the companies we talk about, because that is how we fund these videos. And in about 9 years, I might even break even on this one. With the shrouds, though, let's be honest. They look cool, and that's all that really matters. They give the twin stack a very polished and sleek look.
Putin's army has unleashed unthinkable evil since invading Ukraine, torturing Christian leaders, destroying churches, and burning Bibles, kidnapping thousands of Ukrainian children and holding them hostage in Russia, brutally assaulting and raping women of all ages. Freedom and democracy are under attack, and Ukraine is the front line. Freedom isn't free. Together, we must stand for justice.
Little less important than that is safety, and they do help to keep your kids' fingers away from moving parts. Unlike the shrouds on the single stack, these don't provide extra storage to hang things, and with them on, you'll lose some real estate on your weight horns, because you'll need to use Rogue's included spacers to bump your plates out past the shrouds. You'll still be able to load them up with a lot of weight, but without the shrouds, you only have to bump out your 45s an inch or so to clear the weight stack. Whether or not you get the shrouds doesn't affect the cable shrouds. They're always included, and they're a great example of the build quality and attention to detail on Rogue's FM. Everything from the attachments to the trolleys are over the top. And quite honestly, this is one of the most refined options on the market. The best example of that is the trolleys. I don't care who you put these up against. I've seen dozens of manufacturers, and these are the nicest, and it isn't a close competition. They are probably the definition of American. They're maybe a little bigger and bolder than they need to be because they're commercial quality. You've got UHMW over the front of the trolleys, so your attachments don't scratch anything up, and dual stainless steel knurled handles that, when combined with the 4 rollers, makes the trolleys super smooth and easy to adjust. These are fantastic. I did have a few people reach out after our single stack review asking if their size was an issue, meaning do they go low enough for exercises like delt raises, or do the safeties get in the way? If you're not an absolute giant like myself and are more average size, I still don't think you'll have any problems. I'm 6 foot, by the way, and Winnie is 5'6", and we haven't had any issues. That being said, if you have Rogue's strap safeties and hate them as much as we do because they're a pain to adjust and are permanently attached to the rack, we've remedied that by swapping the bolts out for 5/8" mag pins from Fringe Sport. Now they're quick and easy to remove, and we can set the trolleys as low as possible without anything being in the way. I should note that you can pick which safeties go with your monster rack. They're not part of the FM add-on. We actually use Bells of Steel's 30-inch flip-down safeties on our monster racks most times because they're half the price of Rogues. I do have one nitpick with the build quality on the Twin though. There's no storage hole for the weight selector pin when it's set to the lowest weight. Luckily it's magnetized so you can just rest it on top of the stack, but it's a little bit of an odd oversight with everything else being so well polished. Outside of that though, this entire thing is overbuilt and incredibly well engineered, and that continues through to the assembly and packaging. I'm not going to say it's not a complicated build or that it doesn't take a good chunk of time, but I don't think Rogue could have made it any easier. They've got a series of colored and numbered stickers showing you how to route the cables. They made an assembly video, and the written instructions are good as well. But the entire process can probably be summarized by a clip of how they pack the hardware. I'm not sure who on the team got this approved, but it's awesome, and that same level of care and attention to detail can be found throughout. The only gripe I have about the process is with the weight increment stickers. The directions have you only applying one set, the ones for the lat, pull down, and low row weights. But 4th grade math is hard, and I don't want to figure out what half of 40 pounds is for the functional trainer. When I'm working out, all my blood is being used on my sick pump, not in my brain. But Rogue provides both sets of stickers, kind of. Some of the functional trainer ones are missing after 100 pounds, but even still, why not tell us to apply both? I realize that might not make sense, so let me explain how the FM twin stack works. What's the pulley magic within dual independent 300-pound stacks? Because Rogue is saying the functional trainer is 2-to-1 and the lat pull down and low row is 1-to-1, which isn't entirely accurate. Yes, the front trolleys have a 2-to-1 ratio, which means if you set one of the stacks to 40 pounds, like this one is here now, and you pull, you're actually lifting 20 pounds, but you've got twice the cable to work with. For every foot this handle moves, the stack moves 6 inches. That 2-to-1 ratio gives you about 90 inches of cable travel on a 90-inch tall rack like mine. On a 100-inch rack, you'd have even more. We've tested this extensively, and you will not max the cable length out on this. You can do any exercise you can dream up. A 2-to-1 ratio also means you have a lower starting weight and smaller weight increments, which is what you want to see. The trolleys on the FM Twin start at 10 pounds and go up in 5-pound jumps up to 150 pounds per side. We've tested systems in the past where the starting weight was so high, my wife couldn't use the machine for some exercises, and then the weight jumps were also too big for her to progress on the ones she could use it for. The FM Twin is also incredibly smooth no matter where you pull from. Most people would say that's just because of the aluminum pulleys, and that's a factor. Rogue is using aluminum pulleys, but these systems are more complicated than that. The pulley bearings, cable diameter, groove size, and many other things play a role, but not even my wife wants to listen to me drone on about pulley math. So let's just say it's as smooth as the best commercial units I've ever used. The lat pull down and low row are advertised as 1-to-1, but in reality, they're 2-to-1. They actually work just like Rep's Aries does. A 1-to-1 ratio would mean that if both stacks are set to 300 pounds, we'd get 600 pounds of total resistance on the high and low pull points, but would also have half the cable travel. We don't. The lat pull down and low row max out at 300 pounds total, and we have just as much cable as before. I know, a lot of you were pretty excited about finding a system that would finally challenge you on those 600-pound lat pulls, but for the rest of us mere mortals, this is perfectly fine. The lat pull down and low row start at 20 pounds and go up in 10-pound weight increments. and I've got enough cable for any exercise, no matter where I pull from. The lap pull down is incredibly smooth. There's plenty of space to maneuver and position yourself. I don't feel cramped up against the upright because Rogues place the high pull point far enough away from the uprights that I can still pull straight down without having to lean, and there's enough height that I can get a full range of motion with room to spare. Rogue has their multi-use roller for both the Monster and Monster Light Rack that you can get to hold you down, but since I already had dual leg rollers, I've been using those without issue. The low row is just as smooth as everything else, and since you've got a ton of cable to work with, you can position yourself wherever you'd like. Although I don't mind rowing while seated on the floor, for those of you that do, I've found that sitting on a decline bench works because Rogues angled the footplate. You may have to play around with your positioning, but the telescoping footplate is easy to adjust since it has a handle built into it, so the entire process of messing with the low row is pretty quick and painless.
We're the holiday feastest. The get two pies at leastest. The totally crush your shoppingest. And remember bottles for poppingest. It's one single place with all this and more. You'd never just call it a grocery store. Lido, the superest market.
Working it with the Experian app, your credit's gonna look so money. Fit check, see your FICO score anytime to find out if you're in the green. Lap it up with Experian. Boost and raise your FICO score an average of 13 points. Match with credit cards tailored to you. And look like $1 million by saving on auto insurance. The Experian app looks good on you. Download it today and give it a try for free.
I mentioned that because Brett's original Aries uses a banana connector so that it's set. I've grown to dislike that thing so much that I don't even bother taking it off anymore. Actually, I'd go so far as to say I hate it. I've never hated a banana so much in my life. Oddly enough, not the weirdest thing I've said on this channel. Rogue's system is much simpler. Just clip in with a carabiner on the lap pull down or low row like you're used to doing, and the stacks are already linked. Of course, there are pros and cons to each system. Even though they both have dual weight stacks, with reps you've got simultaneous unilateral capabilities. With Rogues, it's much easier to transition between setups and exercises. For me, I'm pretty happy just doing what I've been doing for decades, switching hands. Again though, there's a lot of differences between the two, so spam the comments and help the algorithm by letting me know what you want comparison videos of. Single stack versus twin stack, rep versus Rogue, me versus my newborn child in a lifting competition, you name it. Having two 300-pound stacks nested inside the rear uprights of the twin leaves plenty of space for a spotter, as long as they don't mind performing the classic bar limbo if you've already set everything up. It also doesn't add much to your rack's footprint, about 4 inches to the depth and just over an inch to the height. Two independent stacks means two people can use this at the same time, which is something you can't do with Rogue's single stack, but the single does have its own advantages. Putting the stacks on the side of the twin also leaves enough space for incline pressing as well. Where Rogue's single and twin stack share some similarities is in the attachments. Actually, they share a lot of the same components, but the attachments on both of them set the standard for everyone else to be judged. I actually bought these from Rogue years ago and have been using them with everything that comes through here because, to be honest, they're some of the best options on the market. They're pretty pricey individually, but since they're included with the FM, they're an absolute steal. Luckily, I'm foolish enough to read all the comments on the channel, which is why I have to cry myself to sleep each night. But every once in a while, I get a really good tip and was told if you already own the attachments, Rogue will refund the cost. I bring that up because it shows, first of all, how awesome my subs are, and second, Rogue's level of customer service. For example, Rogue has the best warranty I know of on a system like this. Lifetime on the rack and 5 years on the cable and pulleys. Most companies offer 1 year or less. Let's get back to the attachments though. The 48-inch long, fully knurled lap bar is fantastic. If I had a commercial gym, that's what I'd put in it. It's grippy without feeling sharp, and that's because it's made of stainless steel. There's no finish to fill in the knurling like you typically find on cheaper imported versions that have a chrome or even powder-coated finish. Also, since it's stainless steel, it'll look as great on day one as it does years from now because the stainless steel resists corrosion. Remember, these attachments I'm showing you on my twin stack are over 2 years old and have been our daily drivers since we got them. Let's make some comparisons on the handles and low row grip triangle to put it all in perspective. I don't want to pick on Rep here because their stuff is well done, but the comparisons make sense. If we put Rogue's single handle cable side by side with Rep's steel D handle that comes with the Aries, it's probably not hard to see the quality difference. Reps are good, Rogues are great. The only advantage I give to Rep is that some people might find the 25mm handle diameter on Rogues a little small. But I also wonder about Rep's durability long term because the handle rotates on the nylon straps, which will wear them down over time versus Rogue's grommet and bushing system where there's no contact or wear on the straps. That results in Rogues rotating smoother and giving you a more natural feeling connection to the machine, and again, they should last about forever. If we compare the low row attachments, well, actually, we can't. Rogue sends their grip triangle with the FMs, which hits on all the factors you want. It's beyond solid, the grip feels great, and the size and shape and angle of it are just about perfect. But in this competition, none of that matters because Rep no longer provides a low row attachment with the Aries 2.0. They provide a second set of D handles. I'm not sure if that's them acknowledging their stack connection system isn't ideal, or if it's them doubling down on the whole unilateral versus bilateral thing. I'll leave my final judgment for when we get the production version in for a review and can do a comprehensive test of the new system. So where does that leave Rogue's twin stack overall? Let me put it this way. My original plan with the single stack and twin stack was to sell one of them to recoup some of the cost of these videos, something you can help with by using our links. Now, I honestly have no idea what to do. The twin is very, very good. Rogue has really outdone themselves. They've managed to pack a ton of functionality into their racks without anything getting in the way. By routing the cables on the outside of the uprights, you can easily add or remove attachments, whether the trolley is set high or low. The price, although it's not cheap, is surprisingly competitive for an American product of this quality. To be quite honest, I can't imagine someone buying this and being disappointed. It has my highest recommendation. If you're looking to save some money though and want to see what the single stack can do that the twin can't, check out our single stack review right here. Thank you so much to our Patreons who help us to afford to make videos like this, and thanks for watching.
Looking for a board for my daughter. Amex founded Small Business Saturday to make an impact. Because for every dollar you spend at a small business, an average of 68 cents goes into making your community better. So on Small Business Saturday, November 30th, shop small. That's the powerful backing of American Express.
We're at day 2 of Home Gym Con. We've been filming for like 16 hours. This place is wild. There's so much equipment. We're gonna miss people. Ignore the weird slops of clothing. We've just been at this for a while. But as you can see, Rogue, ATX, Bell Steel, Rep Fitness, literally
find a company that makes home gym equipment or gym equipment, they're probably here. We'll do our best to cover them. We're not going to hit them all. It's impossible. We're trying, and I apologize if we miss anybody.
Yeah, and special thanks to Bella the Steel for sponsoring the video as well as our Patreons. Wouldn't be possible without you guys.
Let's get going.
We're here at ATX with FALLOW, and this is actually a German company. So, what are you guys doing here?
It's the first time for us in the US. We flew in from Frankfurt on Monday night. Assembled everything. Because yeah, we're not here for fun, not only for fun. We're also here for some business, and we're trying to enter and will enter the American market in the next 12 to 18 months and bring this equipment over.
As you guys can see, we're showing, this is a large booth. It might actually rival Rogue's in size, and they have a larger catalog than this. But we're going to highlight some of the things that hopefully they're able to bring in the US, because as you'll see, there's a lot of attention to detail on little things that we don't often see from our products. So this is one of their belt squats, the compact version of it. So we have not really demoed and played with this stuff, maybe a little bit when they were here last night. But if you look, it just pops up, right? I can do my squat.
Great depth.
Was it a good depth?
It was
That's
good.
most important.
Yeah.
But just, I mean, look at this, how this just locks in super quick. I don't have an awkward belt to measure, but it's not their only belt squat. No,
Shit, look at this. So I got my setup. Laptop being charged. I charged up the bank. Charging up both of the phones. This phone is fully charged. Now this phone needs to be charged as well. It's at 62%.
So they have a bunch of
So it's fucking.
I'm interested in, but the most
I'm trying this shit out. Let's see what the other numbers are. And
I've actually never touched this before, so you can see how easy that is to do.
I fuck with this joint.
If I want to do spider
I gotta figure out how I'm gonna do the video review. Shouts out to everybody who does do those little reviews. They doing a good job with that shit. Cause I'm still trying to figure out how I'm gonna do it. I'm wondering about wasting some of my content doing it live, but then it's a lot of space trying to shoot that shit all on the phone. So I'm trying to figure this shit out as we go. But work with me, people. Work with me, people.
I'm not super creative, but I know
We might should call this one right here. So we gonna ride it.
this is something that's easy to adjust, and you could probably come up with a ton of ways to use this. And I should say at this point of the video, if there's anything you guys want us to cover, let us know in the comments. We're gonna miss stuff, so you see things in the background. Just
Kill it, come back.
there's a lot going on.
We're gonna kill it, come back on a different one. Money Buddha. Thanks for the show. Money Buddha.
Ways that you can change it.
So for